A report released by the Environment Protection Authority has found that contaminants still exist in some waters around Newcastle. The Department of Fisheries placed a ban on fishing and collecting oysters in these areas 9 years ago. It's still in place after traces of metals and organochlorines were recently found in fish and oysters in Newcastle Harbour. Tests revealed levels below the limit set by the National Food Authority. The Department of Fisheries says while the results are promising, they are not conclusive enough to warrant lifting the bans. The Health Department and Fisheries will continue to monitor contamination levels around Newcastle waters. Meanwhile, people are warned not to eat wild oysters from Throsby Creek and the south channel of the Hunter River.
The Chamber of Manufacture's state body is supporting the federal government's regional development program announced on Monday, and as a reflection of their recognising the importance of regional Australia, the New South Wales Council met in Newcastle, the first time it's convened outside metropolitan Sydney. The Chamber, which fosters both large and small business, is seen as a key player in implementing the $150 million regional development program. Small business is seen as the vital link to making the regional development program work, most importantly by creating jobs for local people in local communities.
All our surveys of the economy tell us the larger companies are the ones that are still shedding employment. Small business is absolutely vital to the regional economy because that's where the greatest growth in employment will come from. That's where you're going to have the seedbed for entrepreneurial talent.
The group spent the day assessing Newcastle developments, in particular Honeysuckle, our winning the Mine Hunters contract and the expansion of the Port of Newcastle. The state body also praised the efforts of local companies in joining forces to sell the region. Earlier this year, local engineering companies combined to form an organisation called HunterNet. Next month, local food industry operators will launch a similar network.
By working together, they can get better efficiency, they can get better coverage of a market, they have a wider range of goods, or they have larger capacity, or they have better buying power.
Catherine Lamond, NBN News. It's a car lover's heaven. Hundreds of hot rods, custom-made cars and motorbikes from around Australia, all under the one roof in the Newcastle suburb of Wickham. Here for the annual Rickshaw Show, enthusiasts were busy today prepping their machines for the hordes of people expected to peruse the vehicles over the next 2 days. But there's another reason for all the spit and polish. Owners will compete for the honour of having their car named the best in its class. Manuel Cambarakis has been building his 1928 Ford Roadster for the best part of this year. Registered to be driven on the road, red isn't the only fast thing about this piece.
It does 10.79 seconds at 125 mile an hour on the quarter, standing quarter.
That's fast.
Yeah, pretty quick.
For Scott Netraval, his 1932 Ford pickup is more than just a passing interest. It's this Central Coast panel beater's mode of transport to and from work. Do you ever get any strange looks when you pull up at work in a car like this?
More looks on the freeway, love. You know, you get people trying to drive into your lane because they're too busy looking at the car.
Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
West didn't take long to click into its premiership-leading form. Tim Perrin promoted the footballer Steve Vallette to have the home team within scoring range. 2 plays later and West had its first try. Minutes later and Ashley Gordon so casually ran in his 18th try for the season. Cessnock got within 6 with a softball pointer, but Ashley Gordon showed his soccer skills to kick once, twice, 3 times to pick up try number 19. West had grand final written all over them, streaking away to an 82-8 win. In other games, South beat Maitland 16-8 and Curry cemented its position in the top 5 with an easy 32-0 win against Lakes. Newcastle heads had never looked better for the Lake Macquarie sailors. The police rescue boat dragged their yacht through the heavy seas that held them captive overnight. The drama started late yesterday, after the yacht steering failed 8 kilometres east of Nobbies. The motor and radio equipment was flooded, leaving 52-year-old Tony Green and 19-year-old son Nathan to sit out the cold night. The pair released a flare, but it was either not seen or not acted upon.
We were nervous, I suppose frightened is the word, but we never in doubt that we'd survive all right. There was no danger from that way. It was just that we hadn't got the strength and we were just running out of steam.
Just before 10 this morning, the yacht's distress beacon was activated, the water police towing the craft back to Newcastle Harbour. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
"130 drivers from Australia, New Zealand and New Caledonia entered the tough 470-kilometre race. Set in rugged farmland at Kempsey, the event, now in its 14th year, is designed to test driver endurance and vehicle reliability to the limit. Melbourne driver and former winner Darren Wells took his Rivmaster off-roader to a 4-minute lead at the halfway mark, ahead of national champion Mark Burrows. Wells' winning streak was short-lived, with engine troubles later ruling him out of the race. Burrows in his Trekker managed to grab the lead during the final laps, followed by South Australian Hayden Bentley. The challenging course took its toll on several competitors, with star drivers Doug McMillan, Brett Osborne and Neville Boys being forced out through mechanical failure.
The North Zone Individual Championships attracted 100 surfers from Coffs Harbour to the Central Coast, ranging in age from 16 to 60. Big waves at Wombrel forced a relocation to the more sheltered Shelley Beach. 6 divisions were surfed over the weekend, today in a 1 to 1.5 metre beach break. Newcastle surfer Brian Lee wrapped up the Legends section and Avoca's Baden Smith took the kneeboards. John Batchdor from the Mid-North Coast won the Grand Masters section. An offshore wind had shaped a nice wave for most of the day, but a chilly southerly ripped in this afternoon just in time for the senior finals. Coffs Harbour's Mark Williams came to the fore in the Masters division, and Newcastle's Brett Chalker won the senior men's division. The open section was surfed late in the day, each surfer judged on the best 4 of a 10-wave limit. Mitch Dawkins from Newcastle won the open and Central Coast won the points tally for the club shield.
The 20-month-old baby died just after 1:30 this afternoon at Sydney's Camperdown Children's Hospital. The infant had battled for her life for more than 2 months after being severely scalded in May. In Wallsend Court last month, 25-year-old Mark Gorman was charged with inflicting grievous bodily harm. The child's mother, Belinda Armstrong, was charged with being an accessory. It was alleged Gorman ran a bath for the girl to teach her a lesson for soiling her nappies. He claims the bathroom was poorly lit and he accidentally turned the hot tap on. The baby was taken to John Hunter Hospital 5 hours later in a near-death state, with burns to 50% of her body. She was transferred to Camperdown's Children's Hospital, where she remained until her death this afternoon. Police are expected to lay further charges. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
There will be more than one winner from the Sydney Olympics. Many millions of dollars are up for grabs in spin-offs from the Games. In Newcastle today, dual Olympian decathlete Peter Hadfield told local councillors, business people and sporting groups they are already months behind other regions lobbying to give athletes training facilities for the Games.
The US swimming team, for example, is already booked in to the swimming centre at the Sutherland Shire, which is my hometown, and they've booked in for the 2 years prior to and leading up to the Olympics.
Hadfield says the Hunter region has obvious pluses with equestrian facilities and a world-class hockey centre, but he says the region shouldn't stop there, and someone or some group should be given the job to work full-time to get any business possible, starting from today.
A lot of planning has to be done right now, and there has to be a lot of lobbying done. People aren't just going to come out of the woodwork and say, oh, let's stay in the Hunter region. It's going to need a lot of proactive effort.
And beyond the athletes, there is of course the lure for tourists to come here for and following the Games. With an estimated TV audience of up to 4 billion people, any exposure for the Hunter region could mean a huge increase in the number of visitors. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Maitland Jail is at a crisis point, according to Labor candidate Tony Keating. He says the Department of Corrective Service figures obtained through the Freedom of Information Act show a dramatic drop in safety. He says assaults on prison officers have skyrocketed from just over 2 per 100 inmates to nearly 12, a 400% increase at a time when the state figure remains stagnant.
At Maitland, for example, in the last year, in 1993, there were 16 officers at Maitland Jail assaulted. 50% of these had blood spills which required some sort of medical treatment. Now, in an environment of AIDS and hepatitis, this is of great concern to families.
It's claimed this has eroded morale, with a record number of officers taking sick leave. Mr Keating says this has turned the inmates on each other, with a 25% increase in fights between prisoners.
Maitland Jail is being forced to close down on 1 or 2 days a week. That is, there's no recreational leave for the prisoners, there's minimal workshop activity for the prisoners are being kept in the cells, they increase their abuse towards prison officers. It's just a pressure cooker situation here at Maitland.
The state government says the announcement is the most blatant of political stunts, timed to coincide with the cabinet meeting in Maitland tomorrow. A spokesperson for the Minister of Corrective Services says the 3-year comparison distorts the general trend of an overall decrease in prison violence since 1988. The government says it's appointed 700 prison officers in the last 2 years, and another 150 will graduate and go into the system by the end of this year. Richard O'Leary, NBN News. The 100 delegates met to discuss the three most important issues for its members: enterprise bargaining, the abolition of the Coal Industry Tribunal, and most importantly, coal prices. United Mineworkers President John Maitland says Australian companies are selling short the country's biggest export earner.
I don't think that other countries can sell their coal cheaper than Australia. It's been demonstrated quite clearly by the Japanese themselves that Australia is the most cost-effective supplier of high-quality coal into their market.
He says this has translated into 22,000 less jobs in Australian industry. The United Mineworkers Union will continue its media campaign and also lobby coal companies and the government to get change.
We're really confronted with a cartel of buyers, and we act as individual sellers, and you just can't make headway under those circumstances.
The union is also fighting moves towards enterprise bargaining, which it claims doesn't help its members.
One of the real problems that we have with enterprise bargaining is that any gains or any improvements that we make in productivity are immediately transferred to the customer. Now, that's what it's not about.
The union delegates are also concerned about the effect of the federal government's disbanding of the Coal Tribunal. The union claims workers will now be at the mercy of their bosses. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Four Hunter players have been named in the Australian team. One of them, Alison Foreman, is already overseas playing in Denmark's National League. Lisa Dunn, Cheryl Salisbury and Linda Hughes were out for a last-minute run before linking up with the rest of the national side tomorrow. All three have represented Australia in senior ranks before. 26-year-old Lisa, the most capped, having worn the green and gold since the age of 17. The 18-member Australian side will play 8 games in 3 weeks in Germany, Austria, Denmark and Russia. While the standard of overseas teams they'll duel with remains relatively unknown, 26-year-old Linda Hughes, who's also played in the Denmark Soccer League, believes Australia will be competitive.
We've got a great, fit, young team and there's a lot of new talent coming through all the time, so yeah, I think we'll go fairly well against them.
The tour is a warm-up for the team's World Cup qualifying game in Papua New Guinea in October. Linda says having a World Cup, coupled with women's soccer being a medal sport at the Atlanta Olympics, has given females another goal in the sport.
I think a lot of the younger girls are coming through and seeing that, you know, we're getting contracts overseas and the World Cups, this is only the second World Cup, so this sort of stuff's happening and it's giving a lot of people incentive, a lot of women incentive to get in there and have more of a go.
Catherine Lamond, NBN News. Newcastle University is calling in the big names for its mid-year concert. Together with 4 internationally acclaimed soloists, reputed Australian conductor Maya Friedman from Sydney will lead the choir. Mr Friedman is a regular guest conductor with the Australian Opera, as well as having spent 15 years working in England, Canada and Buenos Aires. The 100-member choir will sing in Latin Mozart's Vespers of a Confessor, consisting of 5 psalms and a Magnificat. Also on the program is Vaughan Williams' 5 Tudor portraits. The concert in the university's Great Hall is on Saturday night. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
The cabinet meeting in the Liberals' most precarious seat was supposed to bolster support for the party, but it was met with a hostile response from the mothers of children with attention deficit disorder.
They need to recognise that these children have a problem. It is not only a health issue, it is also an issue for the Department of Education and also for community services.
I've assured them that we are doing a lot more in trying to work more closely together to resolve issues in what is not a perfect area with easy solutions.
But most attention was focused on the state cabinet meeting. It was expected to deliver some vote-catching promises, but the government resisted the temptation and provided little for locals. Cabinet did approve a $450,000 grant for the reconstruction of Melbourne Street in East Maitland, but knocked back a request for $30,000 for a feasibility study on the council's city improvement program. Premier Fay did announce a $40 million 6-year program to attract mineral and petroleum exploration to the state. The government will use the latest technology to try and discover new deposits of oil, gas and metals, but the benefits to the hunter are not known. This left Premier Fay defending his government's prison policy in the wake of claims that assaults on prison officers have increased by 400% in the last 3 years at Maitland Jail.
Well, the staffing level of prison officers has increased significantly over the last few years.
The Labor Party has called the one-day foray into Maitland a publicity stunt, with the Liberals only holding onto the seat with just 200 votes. But what do the people of Maitland think about this ministerial visit?
Well, I haven't heard nothing about it, but I saw on TV they was advertising they was coming, but I haven't seen them.
I didn't know they were coming.
Sorry.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Termites can wreak havoc on a building.
Australia's got some of the most ferocious termites in the world, and they can structurally eat out buildings.
Chemicals called organochlorines are sprayed in the foundations of a building to stop termites. However, as of June next year, they'll be withdrawn from sale, a decision welcomed by organisations like the National Toxic Network.
Tests have shown that after standard approved termite treatments, the levels of the compounds inside homes are such that you might get cancer. Certainly damages the liver of the unborn child.
So where to from here when organochlorines are banned? Pest control operators, builders and building surveyors met to consider that question. New techniques available include stainless steel mesh or a granite barrier. The Master Builders Association says the cost will be up to $4,000 higher for a person building their own home.
The wider community is going to have to pay a significantly increased price with the result of the banning of the organochlorines.
However, Robert Fuller believes costs will come down in time. Jane Anderson, NBN News. Jason Gunn was found dead in his cot at home when he was 6 days old.
Jason was a lovely little boy. He is a spitting image of his father. He was beautiful.
Julie Gunn had delivered Jason at the John Hunter Hospital. The hospital's early discharge program was discussed with her after his birth, and the two went home when he was just 20 hours old. Problems developed and he was readmitted to the hospital, having symptoms similar to a seizure. Jason was allowed to go home, where he later died. Coroner Col Elliott was unable to find a definite cause of death. However, he did make some recommendations regarding the hospital's early discharge program. The coroner Col Elliott says unless written consent is given by the mother before the birth, the hospital should not pursue the option of early discharge. He says a register should be kept of those wishing to participate. For Julie Gunn, the open finding was disappointing. However, she had this advice for new mothers.
To question everything you're not sure about. Don't feel like you haven't got the right to know or ask, because we have. It's our children's lives, it's their health, and it's up to us to protect them.
Jane Anderson, NBN News.
Top juniors from Wollongong to Byron Bay hit the surf. To make the junior state level, these surfers had survived regional elimination rounds.
usually the top 4 teams in their region who get through to the state titles, and they surf as a team, a 2-surfer team, and if they win, they progress through to the Australian titles, which are going to be held in Phillip Island this year.
The judges look for the best manoeuvres in each 15-minute heat.
Always the basic criteria of surf judging is good radical manoeuvres. Nobody's interested in seeing wiggles these days. They want to see good hard turns, and we're seeing a lot of that today.
8 girls' teams participated. The finals and open division heats will be held tomorrow.
This is how Autonomy Day began. 500 university students going on a pub crawl at dawn. It's an annual event when students celebrate Newcastle University gaining autonomy from the University of New South Wales. It's a ritual, and while police acknowledge they're entitled to their fun, they question some of the students' antics.
It was a minority that did spoil the morning for a lot of people. They started to bash the sides of buses and trucks, and it's just behaviour that can't be tolerated.
No one was arrested, however traffic was disrupted as the crowd constantly surged forward onto Hunter Street and surrounding roads. Directives from police and organisers were disobeyed, and while the situation was kept in hand, police say it could well have got out of control because of an unruly minority.
On the whole, the crowd were quite well behaved, although there were a small minority that unfortunately did spoil the morning.
There's no shortage of youthful enthusiasm at the titles. 210 riders from across the state. In this race, 12-year-old Chad Reid from the Lakes Club left the pack well behind him in the 80cc class. The riders range from 15 to just 4 years old. These young trailblazers seem to be in heaven. The most frightening thing for parents, the cost. One of these Pee-wee 50cc bikes can cost $1,500, and then there's the protective gear.
The initial outlay is a fair bit, but after that it's pretty good. A family day out with a club meeting costs us only $8 a day.
The older boys and girls ride up to 125cc bikes, and they put their foot down. At times it's at a price, but the competition puts them way in front when they hit the senior ranks. Racing continues tomorrow. There's one more round of the state titles, points gathered at each comp accumulating for overall champions. Peter Ryan, NBN News. It's definitely not rugby league, but it is the Cessnock Rugby League triples. 200 bowlers began the competition on Monday. That cut to 60 today for the final, playing for a kitty of $5,000 in prize money. Australian and state title holders took part, mostly from the Hunter, but also from Tamworth, Sydney and the South Coast. Organisers were blessed with perfect conditions for today's final, catching some of the region's best performers in action in the triples.